I am really, really pleased to be joined by Ifeoma Jibunoh, or Iffy, as you are widely known, which is fantastic because you're such a super busy lady. I know you travel all over the world extensively, but I've managed to catch you when you're in one place for 30 minutes so we can go through these questions. But um, to give a bit of a context before we leap into the questions for people who are listening. So your current role, you're Group Chief Marketing Officer at Cassava Technologies. So I know you're going to tell us a bit more about that, but it's about a really wonderful vision, actually, which I'll let you go into, but it's about a digitally connected future for Africa. So I'll let you explain more, but I'm fascinated to hear more about that. But your background really is a mix of huge kind of corporate financial services with companies like MasterCard and FMCG with companies like Heineken. So looking forward to hearing about your journey. And I know this year, because we actually met each other at a Marketing Academy event, and I'm delighted to hear that you are on their fellowship program for 2025. They are really hotly contended places. So well done for getting on there. For anyone who is not aware of that, have a look at the Marketing Academy Fellowship Program. It's incredible. I'm sure you'll tell us a bit more about that as well. But Ify, thank you for your time. So lovely to have you on.
So lovely to see you again, Suzie, and thank you so much for inviting me on this and creating the space for me to talk about my journey and to hopefully share a bit of insights.
I'm sure you'll share lots of fabulous insights, but let's dive straight in. Would you share with us your career journey? What led you to where you are now, and any standout moments for you along the way?
I'd love to. I'd love to. So I've been working in marketing for over 20 years, working across different countries, primarily in Europe and in Africa, but also working closely globally with the Americas and parts of Asia. My career journey started with Heineken, where I spent 17 years working at the Heineken company, firstly in Nigeria, which is where I'm from. So I'm from Nigeria, which is the western part of Africa. And then I've worked there across senior marketing roles, which I'll share some more details on when I share some standout moments. After my 17-year journey at Heineken, I pivoted to the world of payments with financial technology, working at MasterCard, where I was responsible for marketing and communications for sub-Saharan Africa, so about 32 countries. And then that led me to where I am today, as a member of the C-suite, as Chief Marketing Officer of Cassava Technologies. So Cassava Technologies is a privately owned company, founder-led, and its mission is about connecting the unconnected. It's about ensuring that no African is left behind. So it's a portfolio company of digital infrastructure services as well as digital services. And this company has been responsible for building the digital infrastructure, the railroad of connectivity in Africa, and laying on added value services on top of that really galvanize digital transformation in Africa. So that's my journey in the last 3 years. And as you mentioned, this year, member of the Marketing Academy, which is a fantastic program for anyone who has not heard about Sherilyn Shacknell. You have to get more information about the Marketing Academy. And that's a program that I started in February, and it's going on till end of September. So currently on that journey. In relation to what led me here, I'd like to start with how I was raised. So like I said, I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in a family surrounded by art. So my parents own a museum in Nigeria. So I grew up learning about storytelling. I learned about life through art and the magic of creativity and storytelling. my academic path led me to law, which gave me the privilege of grasping the fundamentals of logic, critical reasoning, and critical analysis. So the combination of the magic of storytelling and the magic of creativity with the power of logic and critical reasoning has really been quite a foundation to every journey and step that I've made along the road in my career. And some standout moments for me, the first one would be, working for Heineken as a marketeer, working on a global brand as my first brand. And your first brand is your first love. And being able to work on the Heineken brand at Heineken in a school of marketing where you're equipped with the fundamentals of brand and business building was incredibly phenomenal. And I was able to take stewardship of a brand that was scaling in Africa at the time, a global brand being relevant for the local audiences. Another standout moment is when I went on my first expatriation, working in Amsterdam with very young children. I have two young daughters who were under 5 at the time, navigating those personal challenges as well as navigating cultural realities of working in a different country. And then the role that I did, which was launching a global brand across the world, a global specialty brand, was incredibly phenomenal. And then the last, standout moment that I would like to share is, pivoting from consumer goods, the world of B2C to the world of B2B. Not only as a CMO, but also doing it in a very different industry, a different landscape, and navigating the challenges of elevating and transforming the role of marketing within a B2B landscape has been quite a few standout moments for me in my career.
Oh, that's quite some journey, and what an incredible kind of experience to kind of growing up with that kind of love and passion of art and storytelling. Law on the surface seems like quite an odd follow-on from that, but you're right, it's the critical analytic thinking, the logic. Thank you very much for sharing that. Can I ask you a bit now about leadership, because I'm keen to understand, as you've made those transitions through your career, what insights or learnings would you share as you make that transition from sort of manager to leader? I know they involve very different styles, and I think the audience would be really interested in your experiences on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that takes me back to my Heineken days. And I once was given extremely valuable advice in relation to how I manage teams. And at the point where I was a manager, I was very much focused on managing upwards and ensuring that I delivered excellent results and you exceed expectations. But in transitioning from a manager to a leader, you have to manage downwards and you have to ensure that you're motivating your team, you're working with them to craft a long-term vision that they buy into and that they can shape, and ensuring that you move together. And a critical experience that I had was when I had to lead a team of my peers. So at one point in my Heineken journey, I was promoted to lead a team that were previously my peers. And that was extremely challenging for a number of reasons, obvious reasons, but being able to understand their motivations and motivate them on a personal and individual basis and galvanize them around a shared vision, and enable us to win together and really elevate this profile of our team was one of the traits and pillars that I use to navigate that. So I think that's really helped me in how I've been able to move into that transition from manager to leader.
Yeah, that's managing peers is one of the trickiest things to do. But it sounds like you've learned different skills through the different companies and cultures that you've worked in as well, in terms of managing and leading those teams.
Absolutely.
You lead a large team now?
I do the marketing function, which sits. Some of my team members are in the UK, but the others are in different parts of Africa. So in total, the marketing department is about 35.
Yeah, it's a sizable team. Talk about strategy for a minute now, because I know that's an area where you've got, deeply honed skills in terms of marketing strategy. More than ever in the last few years, we've seen lots of economic change, digital transformation. I mean, every possible element of change has happened in the last few years. How do you navigate strategy when you've got so much change going on, and how do you lead your teams through those projects?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, these days the only constant thing is change, and I really like to rely on some simple frameworks, one of which is the 5W and H framework. And, using the power of questions to really revisit the long-term vision, and starting with asking, is it still relevant? Does it need to change? And more times than not, once you go back to the long-term vision, it remains the North Star. But how you get there is where you need to adapt and where you need to make some small changes. So scanning the landscape, looking at the industry trends, looking at changing consumer behaviors, changing customer behaviors, gives you the ability to answer the question how to make changes to the plan. And in terms of managing teams, I like to rely on a number of things. The first is experimentation. So once you have the foundational framework and you align on the North Star, which is your long-term vision, then you can experiment. You can, by looking for insights across different parts of the 5W framework, within a controlled environment, you can enable your teams to take certain risks, and to learn in the journey of experimentation. So recently we've launched a hackathon, an employee-wide hackathon in the organization, that enables you to galvanize the teams to experiment and to look for insights. And what's quite nice about this is you can find insights in different parts of the organization. The second thing that I rely on is consistency of communication. You have to over communicate to remind of that longer term vision, but also to manage the anxiety that is always natural in times of change, and to show the presence of leadership, either via town halls or videos, or different updates, and then feedback loops, creating feedback loops from the teams that will enable you to hear from them beyond the ideas, but to get feedback in terms of how things are going, what customers are saying, how you can further adapt and tweak your plans accordingly. So for me, the 5Ws and the H framework, experimentation, clarity of communication, and consistency would be some of the things that I use in these volatile times that we live in.
Have you picked up sort of different styles within the different companies you've worked with throughout your career? Because presumably every company has a slightly different leadership style within their culture.
Absolutely. And Heineken being a global organization, and at the time I joined, the trends were the hockey stick trends. Beer was in constant growth. But when halfway through my career I worked in the UK, I had to manage a portfolio that was in structural decline. and reassessing what success looks like when you are navigating not just a portfolio that's under stress, but a wider category that's in structural decline, requires a different kind of mindset and culture to environments of growth. So even within the Heineken company, the different markets impacted as a result of the economic environments, and what you dial up, whether it's the spirit of innovation, experimentation, is extremely different. But then also now in tech, it's much more dynamic. The appetite for experimentation is much larger. It's almost a given. You have to start with experimentation. If not, you'll be left behind. On one hand, like I referenced, we're working for the African continent, which is really changing and transforming lives. So you have this urgency of really trying to close the digital divide. But because it's in the tech space and it's ever changing, you also have to come with the spirit of experimentation, the entrepreneurial spirits, where you have to act like a CEO, look for ideas, look for solutions. So different companies, different environments, different markets, different challenges, different mindsets over the trajectory that I've walked.
What about advice now? Because we started these Q&As initially really very much for our sort of head of community. They were looking at the CMOs. How did you get there? What did you learn along the way? It was kind of sharing hints and tips. What guidance or advice would you share with anyone who is currently head or director or even a senior manager, but ultimately is setting their sights on CMO?
I think first and foremost, deliver great results, that significantly impact your organization positively. Have a data-driven approach to decision making. The rigor, the measurement muscle alongside the magic and the creativity. For marketing, it's so important. There's so many vanity metrics that exist, especially within the space of digital. But you have to focus on value creation and growth. You have to be able to demonstrate the return on investment of your marketing initiatives. How is it really linking to revenue? How is it linking to the bottom line? On a personal level, you have to keep learning and growing, develop your skill sets, stay curious about industry trends, digital trends, and you have to embrace serendipity, and take some risks. The role of a CMO goes beyond marketing. You are a business leader, so you also have to ensure that you are exposing yourself to the breadth of the organization, because CMOs are really, I like to see them as CEOs in waiting. So you have to have an owner mentality, and you have to think beyond marketing. And lastly, you have to teach and mentor the next generation of leaders. I think the more senior you get, you have a responsibility to mentor others and to teach. And there's also a way for you to professionally develop yourself as well. So those would be a few tips for me.
Some great ones there. And to finish us off today, we talk a lot on this about positive mindsets, resilience, if you like, as well, but fundamentally that positive mindset. And it's no great surprise that the CMOs that we speak with have all got their own sort of personal rituals that they follow in order to maintain energy. I like to think of it more about energy. It's that kind of good energy. Have you got any either rituals that you're happy to share with us, or hints or tips for anyone who might be looking to improve their positivity and their kind of positive energy?
Yeah, sure. I think firstly, when you are going through challenging times, failure is inevitable, and fail fast is what I like to say. Use failure as an opportunity to learn as much as possible. how I stay sane. You know, I like I like to go to the gym. So I always prioritize, ensure that I'm in the gym a number of times a year. I like to disconnect and recharge by reading a lot. Not, you know, yes, I do the business books, but I also love fiction because it just really helps with the, you know, disconnect. I also love to travel and spend time with my family. So those would be a few ways that I just recharge and ensure that I keep my energy levels at the optimum to navigate the uncertainty that we currently face in the world.
Yeah, and I like the fiction book tip. And for me, I have to read a fiction book before I go to sleep, not a business book. Otherwise, my brain's whirring on all the
It doesn't
ideas.
stop. Exactly, exactly.
That's the opposite effect. Ify, thank you. You're an absolute joy. It's lovely to spend the time
Thank
with
you so
you.
much, Suzie. Thank you so much for creating the space.
Absolute pleasure. And I know the audience will love to hear all about your story.